right, we are live, but we gotta bring the Facebook groups in here. All right. Go wait for a couple green check marks before we can get going. All right. Welcome into another episode of Devology Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and joining me as always is Lance Sanderson. Lance, it's been a week since we've had here, and we talked a lot about the Olympics last week. Almost over, just a couple more days left. I have now watched my 4 of the 5 hockey games I will watch until 2030. Watch the American women win gold, watch their game to get into the gold, and then of course I watched the quarterfinal and semifinal game for the men's hockey team, and then I'll watch the gold medal match as well. Only time I watch hockey. But man, I said it before, I'm a big fan of the Olympics. It's when I watch a lot of sports that I don't normally watch. And I got to tell you, watching hockey is difficult as it is for me. And it was made even worse for their game today because we had America in their predominantly white with some blue on it jerseys. And then we had Slovakia in their predominantly blue with a little bit of white on it. Made it really hard to see. But anyways, how you doing, my man? How's your week been? How's the family? All that.
It's been a really interesting week. Yesterday, I had to take our son Jace to a doctor's appointment for an MRI on his shoulder. I believe he has a torn labrum. We got another doctor's appointment next week to figure out if that's actually the case or not. But we're fairly certain at this particular point. So that was interesting. But on top of that, so the hospital that we went to is about a 45-minute drive from our house on a normal day. The night before we had to leave, we got 6 inches of snow, and the roads, like winter finally arrived in Wyoming. It's like 10 degrees outside. It's freezing in my office right now. So, but yeah, we left our house. We were supposed to be at the appointment at 9:00 in the morning. We left our house at 7:30. A 45-minute drive took us an hour and right at an hour and almost 25 minutes. We showed up 5 minutes in front of the appointment. So that was interesting. But back to the Olympics here really fast. Obviously a big hockey fan, big Colorado Avalanche fan. So going into this gold medal game, Canada versus the United States, I cannot be more excited to have to wake up at 6:00 in the morning on a Sunday to be able to watch USA versus Canada hockey. I'm so excited about that. But more excited about, obviously, guys, it is draft season. We're getting into the combine starting next week. There's a big show for you guys tonight. Going to run through a bunch of different names. I got a bunch of questions for Erick, but yeah, other than that, doing really good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm really tired. This time of year is always really busy for me. Getting stuff for the combine, as well as some stuff I'm working on behind the scenes, some of the stuff I've shown to you. And I can't wait to dive into that a lot more, especially next week when we will be during the combine. And so because the combine starts on Tuesday, but the drills and stuff like that don't start until Thursday. They do their measurements, they do their intake and stuff like that. But I'm excited for it. I think there's a decent enough chance that we can see a new best in 40-yard dash. There's been a lot of talk that we can get a sub 4.2 40 this year. And I'll be really curious to see what that is. Every year you get a little bit of hype for it, but this year it's a lot more of, yeah, he's a legitimate threat to get a sub 4.2.
There's a couple of them actually.
It's just mind-boggling that people can run that fast. So I'm excited for all that. I'm excited for all the combine stuff, the rumors and all the chatter that comes out of it. Sean Payton and George Payton, they have their combine press conferences on Tuesday. And so I can't wait to see what we get out of that. I'm expecting to get some insight as to Davis Webb's full role as offensive coordinator. Does he have play calling? Does he not? How does that look? And finally get some answers to that. So there's a lot that happens, a lot of free agent stuff. There's a lot of conversations, a lot of trade talk happens here between general managers, between coaches. So I'm just really excited to see what it is, especially this year when you have guys like Adam Schefter, Daniel Jeremiah, Ian Rappaport all saying that this might be a big year for trades just because of how the free agent market looks and how the draft is a little bit on the weaker side. So it's not just about the drills and everything like that, though that works for, a lot of the analytical stuff and measurements and how, looking and digging into all that, but it's all the information that comes out of it. And I'm excited to start talking about it, being able to preview it, what we kind of we're watching for, some players that we're going to be watching for. Can't wait to talk about it do the show next Friday, where we'll be able to start actually talking about some of how things have turned out. And the week after that, being able to wrap it all up. So 3 weeks of combine stuff and on the Dove Valley Deep Divers, and I am so excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see if we get an insider fight like we did. Was it last year or the year before?
Last year between Jordan Schultz and Ian
Jordan
Rappaport.
Schultz. Yep. It's always fun out of the combine, and like Eric said, like there's always a lot of trade rumors and free agency signings and a bunch of just different really cool information that comes out of being in Indianapolis for what is it? I believe it's right at 6 days from when it starts on Tuesday to Sunday, I believe is the last day, Sunday, Monday. But like going back to just a few years ago, the Russell Wilson trade was consummated at the combine between George Paton and John Schneider of the Seattle Seahawks. It was originally written down on a napkin, I believe. I'm not sure if it was at St. Elmo's or if it was at another bar, but the story that came out was that's how this trade was actually came to fruition. Was if the Broncos couldn't get Aaron Rodgers, it was going to be Russell Wilson. And these backdoor, back alley secrets that somehow come out of the woodwork when people start to kind of open their mouths a little bit, it's really fun to dig through all the information. So I'm excited to get a lot of that aspect of it. But again, dude, just getting to know a lot of these prospects. The combine is one of, if not the biggest scouting tool that you can use outside of just utilizing tape. I mean, you actually get measurements, you actually get the athletic testing, you get to see in a controlled environment how these athletes move, the way their bodies are kind of taken through all these positional drills and stuff like that. To have a controlled setting where everything is 100% official, on top of then you can go back and recheck the tape again and confirm that, yeah, this guy runs a 4.6 as compared to a 4.4. Like all of this information comes out so quickly and it happens so fast. It's a whirlwind worth of information, but it's always fun to dive through and try to figure out every single minute detail that you possibly can.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that here, but before we do, we're going to say hello to Papa Bear, David McGorath with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Papa Bear. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Papa
He says,
Bear.
"Good evening, Broncos country. I don't have many questions, but Eric, what do you think of tight end Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon? Thanks in advance. Hashtag GB Bo Nix."
I think he's trying to say go Bo Nix.
But my opinion of Sadiq, and Nick and I, this is something that Nick and I have talked about a lot on the morning shows. I am fine with Sadiq at 30. Depending on how the board looks, I wouldn't mind trading up depending on what 30 and a fourth can get you. I wouldn't give more than that for moving up for Sadiq. That's about it. I think there are some reasonable questions about his overall production. Granted, Oregon, they love to pass it around. They love to spread the ball around. So it's not a one guy system there, but still some concerns for it. There are times where in some big moments, he kind of faded away. And there are some questions about his ability to live as a wide tight end. I think he can do it, but can he live there? Can that be his primary spot? Or is he more of, that mismatch weapon that's going to be predominantly in the slot, who can block really well in the slot and occasionally slide inside? I have some questions about that. And, positional value here with tight ends in a class that I'm starting to come around as being a little overrated, especially for the lack of blocking that this class has. So I like him at 30. Depending on if you can get up for him for a 1 and a 4th and he's there, I would do it. But other than that, if he's there, he's there. If he's not, then I'd go elsewhere.
Well, I think the big thing here with Kenyon Sadiq is one, that he's still a little undersized. Though he's rocked up. I think he's only 6'1", 240, 245. So while Brock Bowers was a little bit smaller than that, if I remember correctly, this is an undersized player. He's very competitive as a blocker. Is he going to live, like you said, is he going to live there 100% of the time? No. And you're going to want to utilize the athletic mismatches here. But also at the same time, is he truly a great route runner, or is he just an athlete just being a better athlete than players over the middle of the field? So while the run after catch numbers are great, the production's down for sure. There's an archetype here that you can really fall in love with it as like more of a juiced up Evan Ingram, like a Brock Bowers kind of a player here. Is that worth it at 30? I think so. Absolutely. In a trade up, probably not. A 1 and a 4, if you really wanted to do that, then sure. If that gets you into the mid 20s, if he's there to get in front of like San Francisco or a team like the Eagles, if they really want to move on from Dallas Goedert, they're looking at Kenyon Sadiq. Sure, I might be on board with that. But I think the biggest thing here is, what is the true high end floor of this player? Is he a guy that you can utilize on all 3 downs in terms of being the front side blocker? Is he kind of a backside cut down guy? Is he more of like a power slot receiver at the next level? Is he really a true separator in terms of route running ability that can get linebackers and safeties away from his body? And again, when players get bigger and stronger and faster, is he a guy that can truly have that breakaway athleticism, that breakaway speed in the open field to be that kind of a player, like a Sam Laporta, like a Brock Bowers, like even a Travis Kelce over the course of his career? So those concerns to me, I love Kenyon Sadiq. I really do. And if he's there for the Broncos at 30, I'm hammering the table for that. Absolutely. I don't necessarily think I want to move up for him.
Yeah, again, it just really depends. Can you get up for a 30 and a fourth because you have that extra fourth from the Bailey trade from the Saints? If that can do it, all right. If not, I'm not doing it. Yep. And one thing, Nick and I, this is one of the things that Nick and I, we see a lot of the conversation kind of revolve around that he's Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland. He is not that caliber of prospect.
No.
Just put it out there. So I hope that answers your question, Papa Bear. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for joining in early when you're listening back to this. I hope you're pleased with our answer. But we have Todd Ossendorf saying, "What's up, Broncos country?" Ernie Mays saying, "Go Broncos country only." Daniel Berry Sports Highlight saying, "Happy Friday. What's up, people?" Glenn Ashley coming in saying, "Good afternoon, Eric. Afternoon, Eric, Lance, and Broncos country. It's been good reading your position assessments, Eric. I'm glad. I have every single position except for quarterbacks. I have my current top 10s all written up, just waiting to be published prior to the combine. I'm not doing this again. I'm not going to do it after the combine. I'm not going to make an adjustment because my priorities will have shifted at that point and more singular scouting reports. So if you guys want to, go check that out. I also have my top 50 board up on there as well. But anyways, I'm so excited for the movement in free agency to start. If we were to take 2 linebackers in the draft to complement Greenlaw, who are you guys taking? Well, this is tough because one of them's needs to be able to start, and one of them's got to be that backup. So one of them you're got to look at filling that Alex Singleton role or Justin Cernard role, depending on how you view Dre Greenlaw. Do you view him as that downhill guy, not necessarily the stack linebacker, but kind of the one who sorts the trash and makes the plays that way, which is what he was able to show. If that's the case, then you need somebody who can be that downhill stack linebacker. The issue with that, unless Greenlaw reemerges back as that cover guy, where Denver didn't trust him this last year in coverage, they were rotating in the playoffs for Justin Cernard in coverage situations. I don't see a guy who is a great downhill stack backer that can also boost that coverage. So then you're going to be looking at doing the same thing with Justin Cernard, finding a cover guy for it. And after a certain point, I'm not sure there's a great cover guy or a great stack backer. I have a hard time seeing 2 guys in this draft come in unless you are spending 2 of your first 3 picks on them to be major contributors as rookies at linebacker. So it's not a question I can really answer for that reason.
I think that going kind of back to what you were saying here, if you need like a downhill stack linebacker, and maybe Josiah Trotter is not truly a stack linebacker, but he is a very like heavy downhill, want to go and be like an attacking player. You could get him in the second round. If you're looking for like a kind of all around guy, but lengthy, long, good athlete, kind of a mover player to play alongside Greenlaw, you could go like Jake Golday from Cincinnati. Kyle Lewis out of Pittsburgh can do a lot of that as well. But again, like you said, Eric, those 3 players right there are all going to fall in the same general area of the draft, somewhere between 50 and 80. So you're only going to get one of those guys. I haven't done enough on the back end of this linebacker class yet to really give you another player that could fit within those 3 types of players. So honestly, I wonder how much the Broncos considering where they're at right now with the cap space that they currently have and the cap space that they could potentially have if they restructure contracts like Cortland Sutton, Mike McGlinchey, Ben Powers, it moves some money down the road a little bit here. Alex Singleton, it makes a lot of sense if they want to bring him back to kind of be that same pairing that they had alongside Dre Greenlaw as a guy that can run scrape through the trash, put Greenlaw back in coverage a little bit more, then bring in a guy like Golday who can kind of complement the both of them together, or a guy like Kyle Lewis who can replace Alex Singleton on third downs and play in coverage. It's almost too specific of a question, at least right now, based on what we have going into free agency. I would like to answer this question again. So come back with it, Glenn, after free agency has opened up and see what the Broncos do at the linebacker position. But as far as the draft is concerned, it's almost too open-ended on either side of this to really give a solid answer.
Yeah. And we have Heath Holmes coming in saying, evening, Lance and Eric, can you please share which top 32 projected player is the most overrated, overhyped, and therefore shouldn't be in the top 32? So the difficulty I have here is who's top 32. Because if you're asking for my top 32, then I think all the guys in there should be there. So I can pull up Daniel Jeremiah's top 32. I can pull up Dane Brugler's top 100 board, and we can look at the top 32 of that. One guy I will say who I see consistently in the top 32 from different boards that I think is very overrated and overhyped, Casey Concepcion out of, what is it, Texas A&M, right?
Yep.
He is one that I think is very, very overrated. A little bit better version of Marvin Mims entering the NFL right now. I'm sure there's others, but he is the first one that comes to mind.
Concepcion is actually, give me a second here. I got to pull up my Google sheet. I believe I have him right now as, oh, that's the wrong one. Give me just 1 second here, guys. So give me to the wide receivers. I have Casey Concepcion right now as wide receiver 8 on the board that I currently have as a second round player. And there's a lot of people thinking that he could go in the top 25. I have Chris Bella ahead of him. I think I have Jeremy Bernard in front of him as well. No, Jeremy Bernard is right behind him. Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper Jr., Denzel Boston, Chris Bell, like the most of the top guys I have in front of Casey Concepcion. And honestly, I don't think that he should be a top 50 player where he's at right now. I really don't. He's small. He's got great speed, but for the most part, he's limited as a route runner. I don't think that there's enough separation aspects with him outside of just straight line speed. And he offers you pretty much nothing as a blocker. So to me, having a guy like that, you're looking at the elite speed that he has, and is like, we're going to translate that into a deep threat because that's what he is right now.
Yeah. We have Paul coming and saying, hello, Lance and Eric. Hope my friends are doing good. Hope you're doing good, Paul. It says, I love Iowa since it's Nick's 40th birthday month. Making a crack at Nick. I absolutely love it. Michael Rankeel coming and saying, Eric and Lance, your thoughts on ESPN article about trading Jonah Ellis? I think Denver is in a position where they kind of need to clear the logjam at edge. And the two guys, I mean, you have 3 guys that realistically make sense with Jonathan Cooper, Jonah Ellis, and Dondre Tillman. Cooper and Ellis are the ones that are going to bring you the most value. And so you can look at moving on from Cooper, saving some money against the salary cap and some future cash, and trying to capitalize on 2 years of Jonah Ellis left on his rookie deal before possibly giving him an extension. Or with Jonah Ellis, you can look at the injury history. He struggled to stay on the field both of the last 2 seasons in Denver, and maybe move on from there and give more reps to Q Robinson, who flashed a lot when he did see the field. And then you supplement that by bringing another edge guy at the bottom of the room to sit there and try to develop. So you can start working on churning the roster there year after year a little bit. Not too much, but one guy, being able to trade him away, get an extra cap piece there, and being able to have a guy in place to replace it. That's a good way to build your roster and stay competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially in a deep edge class this year. I mean, we're going to get into it here in just a minute for players at the combine, but I mean, there's 10 guys in the top 100, I believe, this year, according to Dane Brugler. I think that was the number he had. It might've been 11, but like, this is a deep edge class. And if you wanted to move on from a player, get an extra draft pick, Ellis makes a little bit of sense for the injury concerns. Cooper, I'm not sure the financials. Did you touch on that? I was trying to read chat really fast, but did you touch on the financials?
I didn't go into details about it, but it can save them a little bit of money with the move.
Yeah. And with the fall off that he had specifically against the run, where he was very, very selfish trying to get upfield and get after the quarterback and not truly setting an edge. At least Jonah Ellis, as of right now, when he was on the field, showed the ability to consistently, it may not have been great, but at least consistently try to set an edge and still be able to get after the quarterback. I would actually move Cooper before I moved Ellis, just to try to get cheaper at that position and then bring in another draft pick behind that. But you lose top end, you lower the floor of the room in general by doing that. So it's a fun conversation.
And to get specifically into the Cooper contract, he has a $14 million cap hit this year. If they trade him prior to June 1st, say they trade him during the draft, Denver will still have $6.8 million of dead cap space against them, freeing up 7.2. If they wait a little bit, which is always a possibility, say they draft a guy in the draft, maybe round 4, round 5, they want to see how things go. We get closer to the season, getting through training camp, getting through the preseason, roster cut downs. They look at moving a trade there. Denver's now eating $2 million in dead cap this year and $4 million and about $5 million next year, with $12 million saved against the salary cap this year and 13.5 next year. So it's a little bit better if they went that route, but they can save some money against salary cap both ways. Obviously, the 6.8 million dead, that would all come off the books this year with the pre-June 1st. So it's definitely on the table for them. Whether they do it or not, that obviously remains to be seen. Peter Johnson, I heard an interesting question on another podcast, which was, what first round product are you prospect are you fellas completely all out on, minus Sadiq, and for the reasons we mentioned? Right now I am not all the way out. Well, that's not true. There is one guy I would not touch with the first round pick right now, but I would definitely take him in third. I like 33rd overall, which is stingy, but it comes down to that 5th year option with it. Peter Woods, the interior defensive lineman out of Clemson. Right now, I would not take him in the first round, but if you trade down and you pick at 33 and he's there and he's the best guy available, I would do it then. And again, it comes down to that 5th year option.
Yeah. And with Woods, it's interesting because there's a lot of stuff coming like out of the woodwork about like character, I don't want to say like bad character concerns, but like commitment issues. And he's a little bit thin for a guy that's listed at 305. He might not be 290 pounds. Like the combine's big for him. Like this is a great segue into this. And Eric, I'm going to kind of take over here and we can get into the combine aspect of this.
I got a couple more questions here that I want to get to for it.
Okay.
Michael coming in, Sean Payton and George Payton will talk on Tuesday at the combine. We have Shiloh coming in saying, good evening, Eric and Lance. Hello to everyone else. Just got done with some dance lessons with my girlfriend for the first time. Now I'm ready to boogie in the chat. Glad to have you join us, Shiloh. I hope you had a wonderful time learning swing. I have no idea if that's what it actually was, but in my head, that's what it is, because swing dance is actually a lot of fun. Fun fact, I used to take dance lessons a lot. I took tap, I took breakdancing, I took swing, and I took something else as well when I was a little bit younger. Thank you all for joining in. And of course, Roy Osborne, just want to say hi to the best, Eric and Lance. Also wanted to listen in on input on prospects. Thank you, Roy, for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful time listening in on what we have to say. And Lance, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So going back to kind of what I was getting at there with specifically Peter Woods, and guys, like I kind of jumped into it a little bit earlier. The combine is one of the best tools that you can possibly use in terms of just getting to know a lot of these players. I mean, measurables, movement skills, stuff like that. There's always going to be confirmation bias or even questions that you do get answered. Again, going back to Peter Woods, a lack of arm length. There's a lack of size there. Is there commitment issues in terms of wanting to be the best player that you can possibly be, and like effort issues on tape? Like there's a lot of different things that you can really like dive into. And there's also a lot of things that people don't necessarily know about what's going on with the combine. And Eric, I've formulated a handful of different questions. Some of them are generic. Some of them are like particularly roster related. But first and foremost, before we get into anything like that, what is the biggest takeaway that you have from the combine? Like in general, like the biggest thing that you utilize the combine for?
It varies position by position. Because different elements of it matter more for different ones in correlation to potential success at the NFL. Obviously, you don't want a running back with a really slow 40-yard dash time.
Yep.
Unless you put it up against the tape or in miles per hour test stuff that they have data now that they have now. Say it's a guy from the Senior Bowl. Throughout the Senior Bowl, he hit 22 miles per hour there. but he goes and runs a 4.8 40-yard dash here. It doesn't add up. So that kind of suggests that maybe he put on a little bit of weight. Maybe he lost some weight. Maybe he was dealing with some stiffness. Maybe nerves got to him. So you don't take everything at the combine as without a little bit of like some grain of salt there. An example of this is Pat Bryant from last year. Everybody got hung up about the 4.6 whatever 40-yard dash, but Zebra data, which is miles per hour, had him touching on 20 and 21 miles per hour multiple times during the season. He showed that speed, but for some reason at the combine, it wasn't able to translate to a 40-yard dash. And so you can't overreact to it unless it is complete outlier in terms of measurements specifically. Arm length is a big one here. Wingspan, outliers, both negative and positive, like greater than or smaller than, those types of outliers. Neither one's necessarily good. An offensive tackle with 100th percentile arm length doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be good. And typically you want it to be right around 94th to 95 percentile. And there's actually a drop off after that, but you also don't want it typically under 50% percentile because there's such a drop off at that mark. In terms of athletics with linebackers going on this 162, that 10-yard split, that is the number that you're looking for. I went through and I did some research and everything like in this with some help prior to the show today, and in official combine times, so released by the NFL for 10-yard splits, which we don't have for a lot of years because they didn't start really doing it until the late 2000s, a little bit before 2010. There has not been an all-pro linebacker to run a 10-yard split slower than 1.62 seconds. So 1.62, that is the mark that you're looking for an all-pro caliber linebacker typically. Doesn't mean that it guarantees success, and doesn't mean that if you're slower than that, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to not be an all-pro player. That is just pretty standard what you're looking for with it. And the 162 time for linebackers has actually been well known for about 10 years now. Whenever I've talked to people about the splits, that is the one that's been constant for linebackers. 162. I've heard different versions or different numbers for tackles, for running backs, for wide receivers, but linebackers always been 1.62.
Yeah. All right. Quick question here from Heath on YouTube saying, could you see the Broncos drafting a backup? He comes back and say a backup quarterback. If so, who would you prefer from this draft? Wanted to kind of stay away from quarterbacks. Erick, if you got just a couple names off the top of your head to upgrade the backup quarterback over Jarrett Stidham.
You're not upgrading the backup quarterback in this draft. It is a bad one. You can look at some guys to try to develop. Luke Altmaier out of Illinois. Don't tell Nick I said this. Mark Gronowski out of Iowa. Just because of how tough they are, they're smarts. Those are the cerebral aspect of it is there for Peyton. There's a couple other guys out there as well, but if you're talking backup, you're talking taking a complete flyer in the 7th round.
Yeah, it honestly, guys, it's not worth it to talk about quarterbacks. I had one question for Erick regarding Joey Aguilar, who had an injunction trying to get an extra year of eligibility.
Trying to get an injunction to get the extra year of eligibility.
Yep. So late entrance into the combine, late entrance into the draft, and I'm not necessarily sure where he's going to go, but that doesn't really matter. Back to the actual topic. Actually, no, we want to grab this from Phil really fast. Good evening, Erick and Lance. We're still getting no respect. Over under win projections have the Chiefs and Chargers at 10.5, while the Broncos are 9.5. I pray we sweep both of them. And thank you, Phil, for jumping in. Preseason projections and stuff like that, like the early betting odds are, it's almost like rage bait, more or less. It's not really worth your time to dive into it. And quite honestly, after what just happened for this last year with the Chiefs and Mahomes tearing his ACL, the Chargers not being able to stay healthy once again for like the 50th year in a row, and the Broncos being in the AFC Championship game, yeah, Bo Nix got hurt, but I trust this roster turnover year over year with the Broncos where they're currently at and the way this roster is constructed, and the resources that they have to improve the roster in general. It's laughable to me. Erick, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't mind it once we get to training camp in August, start seeing some of these projections. But right now, before free agency, before the draft, before teams really make those moves to do it, it's just betting places trying to get money. But I do agree it is laughable with how they have it for Denver. But yeah, I don't pay any attention to that at this point, really. Just because, again, we have no idea what these teams are going to do to improve themselves, or in some cases, potentially take a step back. And it's all just complete opinion based off of nothing at this point.
Yeah. All right, so there's a couple of questions coming in, but they're like position specific, and one from Ronk asking about trading down in the draft. As of right now, I think it's a little bit too early. Let's get to the combine here, though, guys. I'm going to start it off. I've got, like I said, a handful of just different questions, some players I want to kind of get into. We're running a little bit short on time. We got about a half hour here, and I got a bunch here that I want to get into. But specifically talking to the running backs here, Erick, obviously 40-yard dash, you were kind of talking about that. But when you get into like the positional drills in terms of running backs, like the route running aspect, change of direction and whatnot, what is the most important drill that you focus on for running back? And what specifically are you looking for from these players at the combine?
Actually, I could answer this question while also answering Todd Ossendorf's. It says, for wide receivers, do you think 3-cone or 40-yard dash is more important for predicting future success in the NFL? And the answer to that question and the answer to your question is it depends. It depends on the archetype of the player. So for big slot separators for wide receivers in particular, that 3-cone is more important. If you're a speedster, obviously you're looking at the 40-yard dash. And for all receivers, that 10-yard split carries a lot of importance. How explosive are you off the snap, off the line? Running backs, very similar with that. Scat backs, obviously, the pure receiving types, the smaller guys, you're looking for top end speed. And a lot of times that's the back 20 in the 40-yard dash that you're looking at. For big power backs, it's that initial 10. A lot of anything where you have to fire off the line and get going, that's your 10-yard split. That is of importance. Big backs, you got to get up, you got to get quickly to the line, and you got to be able to power through it. Receiving backs in general, that's typically more your change of direction aspect. Obviously, speed, the 10-yard split, those are important, but it is the 3-cone, the shuttles, those types of drills that have a little bit more of an indicator of a receiving back type. Power back, again, burst, contact, balance. This is one where the footwork drills are really important for more power backs, with how light are they on their feet? Are they too heavy? Do they kind of become plotters with their movements? And then scat backs, those small, fast, quick guys that you can use as, as an explosive runner, an explosive receiver. 40-yard dash, you want that long speed, you want that 10-yard split. 3-cone and shuttle aren't as important for them. And the most underrated, and probably two of the better explosive tests for them, is the vertical and the broad jump. So you also are looking at those specifically for running backs in general, because that's a good measurement of explosion.
Yeah, that's actually a question I have for you with the edge group in terms of when it comes to like explosiveness. What's more important? Is it like the 10-yard split? Is it your vertical jump? Is your broad jump? Like what specifically in terms of like evaluating explosiveness do you look for in terms of, and obviously, that player style is definitely a big factor here. Like what exactly kind of player are you looking at? Obviously running backs different than defensive end, but like go into like edge defenders. Like you've got some undersized guys like David Bailey or Romello Height or a guy like R. Mason Thomas, that these are these like twitchy, explosive edge rushers as compared to like a Keldrick Falk or even like a Cassius Howell. Like the differences between these, how do you measure that explosiveness, and which is like more important for you in terms of that?
Before I get to that, Todd saying I'm frozen. My webcam is dying. Anytime I click out of StreamYard, my webcam basically freezes up, and I'm going back and forth between different things. So my webcam is probably going to freeze up a lot on me. I'm looking at getting a new one here soon. As for answering your question, with any position, it's a combination of the three. It's not just broad jump, it's not just vertical jump, it's just not just that 10-yard split. It's a combination of them that really test that explosiveness with it. But there is a slight difference of weighting the importance depending on the type of speed rusher that you are talking about. So if you're looking at a guy like, say, Keldrick Falk, you're looking more for that vertical, that pure explosiveness, that pure power off that snap, because that is more of his game. If you are talking more of a speed rusher, an R. Mason Thomas, or even Nick Benito as a Broncos comparison for it, you are looking more for that 10-yard split. How fast can they get upfield? You want to strain that arc. How fast can they get up there? And then broad jump is kind of the third one in here for it. And broad jump is a little bit better for interior defensive linemen than it is for the
Mhm.
outside, but it is important for all explosive testing here. As that again is that power of being able to get forward, especially with some defensive line techniques, including a jump to close that space on interior blockers to make it harder for them to get your hands on there. So you kind of want to do that. How fast can you do that? And there is a formula out there that takes the time from their jump to when they landed and their distance, and it calculates, and they're able to take that and be like, okay, you're only jumping a yard in this case to get into their body. How quickly are you able to do that? Which I think is absolutely fascinating
Yeah.
um, for that. And so it's again, it just varies, and that's going to be the answer to a lot of these as well. For those of you listening, is it's going to depend a lot of importance based off of what type of player they are.
Yeah. Yeah. So Keith asking really fast, who here has attended the NFL Combine, host included? I have not. I don't believe, Eric, you have ever been to the Combine. I know Nick went a handful of years ago. Chad and Zach have been, I think, a couple of years in a row now. I know Chad was just there. So no, I would love to go. It just doesn't work out in terms of my work schedule and also vacation timing. But yeah, I would love to go to the combine. I'd also more. I actually think I'd rather go to the Senior Bowl because I think there's a little bit more access in terms of like the private style life where you can go out and not only meet players, like you can also go and meet uh, personnel departments. Like go find the backyard bar and just go talk to people. Like you can do that in Indianapolis, but for the most part, the Senior Bowl is really where a lot of that kind of backdoor behind the scenes communication goes. Is really at the Senior Bowl. So. All right, let's go into some players here. I've got a couple that both went to Indiana at the running back position. We might have to actually kind of speed this up a little bit. Roman Hemby versus Kalon Black, and these are the rotational players that Indiana had in their backfield. Roman Hemby was a starter. Kalon Black is a guy who went to the Senior Bowl and actually really showed out, which is kind of surprising that he didn't get an invite. Eric, do you understand or have any insight on as to why Roman Hemby got the invite here as a lesser physical running back, or to Kalon Black, and why he didn't get the invitation? Because he definitely should have been there.
I don't know. I actually like Black more than Hemby,
Me too.
personally. But when I ask around about some of the snubs, and when I was doing my snub article, Kalen Black was the one that was consistently mentioned.
Yeah.
It's voted on by NFL teams. They kind of go through, they rank the players that they want, and they go through and they have a certain amount of space for different positions, a maximum amount of space for each position, as well as a minimum. So Roman Hemby, I don't know why, because there are guys that are invited to the combine that I don't think makes sense to have invited over Kalen Black.
Well, I like Jay Knott out of Oklahoma too, more than I like Roman.
He
Hemby.
makes a little bit more sense though because of his medical history and the decline in usage over the last 2 years. Part of that makes sense.
But at the same time, wouldn't you think that being in Indianapolis where you have all of the medical rechecks to do a full evaluation would make the most sense to have a guy like Jaden Knott? Like that makes more sense to have him there.
So they do kind of like a secondary medical recheck later on that includes players who aren't even invited to the combine. That's probably what he'll be. They also probably got some insight into that at the Senior Bowl. Didn't feel like they need to see more into it. And then they just not enough usage, especially this last year, to really, get that invite. So he makes a little bit more sense than Black compared to Black, who was a consistent grinder, played in 17 total games, I think, counting the Senior Bowl, fumbled once, and that was in the very first game. And I mean, a lot of guys from Indiana, they backed out of the all-star scouting games, except for him. And he wanted to go out there and show it, and he still looked really fresh. So I do not get why Black is not one of the combine invites.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move to the wide receiver position here because Todd's jumping in asking about true number one wide receivers that would be within reach for the Broncos, or must we go into free agent for a top-tier wide receiver? And then he jumps back in and says, who are the top 3 wide receivers in the draft Broncos can get to be a potential number one? I have a couple of players here that are going to have some medical rechecks done that, depending on how those go, could definitely impact what the Broncos could do at number 30 overall. One of them being Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona, who a lot of people consider to be, in terms of just like evaluating the tape, one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in this class, even over Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. And then another guy that I really like, and kind of, this is going to be hot takey a little bit because he's not quite exactly the same archetype of player, but in terms of bigger body, bigger build, a guy that reminds me a lot of Demaryius Thomas. And I watched a lot of Demaryius Thomas in my time. This is Chris Bell, the wide receiver out of Louisville. Jordan Tyson tore his ACL a couple of years ago, has a broken collarbone, multiple different hamstring injuries. He seems to be one of the more intriguing players in terms of the medical process at the combine. And then Chris Bell obviously tore his ACL late in the season for Louisville. Going to be one of those better 3 wide receivers. I believe he's top 3 in this class on my board right now. So Eric, those two really in their medical rechecks. Have you heard anything intriguing, or what can they possibly do at the combine without being able to participate to like kind of boost their stock and become that true wide receiver 1 in this class?
Don't have red flags in the medicals. Do well in the interviews.
Yep.
One thing that I've heard with Jordan Tyson is that there is some stuff about his, for lack of a better way to put it, attitude. Not that he's like a snot, but that he just kind of has this ego and arrogance to him a little bit. That teams are a little bit that, from what I've gathered, has some concerns around him with. And then Bell, it's just going to come down to the medicals. Is that ACL? Is that going to be a long-term concern?
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to need another cleanup surgery here, which isn't common, but it does happen every now and then. So it comes down to medicals for them. As for what Todd asked, are there any true wide receivers that would be within reach for the Broncos, or must we go into free agent in this for a top tier wide receiver? I do not think there are any true wide receiver ones in this class that would be within reach of Denver. I think we have some guys who can be really good number 2s. Slim chance they crack into that true number 1 category. And I don't think anybody's going to hit the free agent market that's going to be reasonable in cost that can be a true number 1, because Alex Pierce ain't it, especially with some Colts guys saying that he's going to be asking for $32+ million on an average per year basis.
Yeah, no.
And so that ends kind of answers you both. Who are the top 3 receivers in the draft that the Broncos can get the potential to be a number 1? I really don't see it right now. 2 weeks when we have all the combine data and I run some numbers and I maybe end up going back to some tape on some of these guys, maybe then somebody stands out. But right now, there just isn't anybody.
Yeah, this is a really good wide receiver class, and there's a lot of like high quality slot options that have like different archetypes.
It's a class full of 2 and 3s.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very deep class, but it's not a top heavy class. And even Carnell Tate, I like Carnell Tate, and I think he can be a true wide receiver 1. Jordan Tyson is not that. Mekhi Lemon is not that. Denzel Boston can be like a solid X option for you, but he's more Elijah Surratt, more Cortland Sutton than a true wide receiver 1, like a true game-changing wide receiver. This class lacks that at the top end.
I think Lemon, Tyson, and Tate all have that potential to be number 1 receivers. But when we're talking about number receivers, I don't think they're going to reach top 10 in the NFL wide receiver. Yep. I think when we're talking number 1, we're talking maybe 13 to 20 range for those number 1 receivers, which that's right where that's like the back end of that is right where we have Cortland Sutton.
Yep. All right, so let's jump to the tight end position here. I didn't think I saw anything in chat that I needed to grab right away. Let's jump to tight ends really fast, because a guy that I heard a lot in terms of being like one of the true like top end talent at tight end a couple of years ago when the University of Georgia had Brock Bowers was his backup in Oscar Delp. Like an athletic kind of specimen, big body guy, a decent blocker. Where does he currently sit with you, and what are you looking for with him in Indy? Because he's kind of dropped down boards, especially in this tight end class.
Yeah, there's a lot there that just hasn't materialized on tape. He has those flashes, but just hasn't developed any consistency. The one thing I'm really curious for is, and I know that he's one of Nick's dudes, so I'm sure Nick is waiting for this as well. There's been a lot of talk that he may not have that length that you look for in tight ends, especially with blockers. And there's been some questions if he'll be over that 32-inch mark. which is very similar to Sam Roush, who we do have arm measurement there. Maybe it changes for the combine because for some reason Senior Bowl, the combine, they don't always do it the same, which leads to some changes. But at Senior Bowl, Sam Roush came in with 31-inch arms, which is 0th percentile. And Oscar Delp is expected to be around in that range. So I'm very curious to see where he comes in with that. And then outside of that, it's going to be the drills. What does he do in the drills? How does he look? Is he able to show that clean and consistent technique throughout the drills? Or is it still going to be the inconsistent, kind of sloppy technique that we see when we turn on his tape?
Yeah. To me, it's the consistency is there. The athleticism or isn't there. The athleticism's there. The physicality is there. There's just there's a lot to like when you go back and go back to his early tape at Georgia. Like, how has it not started to like round out into the player that you thought he could be a couple of years ago? Moving down the board here a little bit, a guy I've heard a lot of good things. Huh?
What with Delp, one thing that I'm going to be looking for when it comes to his blocking is his hand placement.
Yes.
Not necessarily where they're placed on the chest, but how they're facing. Are they facing out? Are they facing in? When you watch on tape, you're seeing a lot of this, which is good for catching, not good for blocking. You typically want a little bit more out here with your controlling through your, making your L's, controlling with your pointer finger and your thumb, and using that to kind of control the chest. And you want it placed really on the pectorals, and that gives you the most control for it with blocking from tight ends in particular. So that's what I'll be looking for him. And Darnell Washington, man, he is going back to his combine a few years ago. He is that eye candy guy, that eye test that if you want to see how it's done, turn on what he did at the combine. You'll see how it's done.
Yeah, well, speaking of blocking tight ends, last week we ran a mock draft, guys. If you didn't get a chance to see that, go and check that out. Search Dove Valley Deep Divers on YouTube, and you'll be able to find it. But last week you brought up Nate Borkirker, the tight end, I believe, out of Texas A&M, or is it Texas Tech?
Texas A&M.
A&M, thank you. You brought him as a fourth-round pick in our mock draft last week as like a true blocking tight end. So how, if at all, can the combine help to showcase what receiving ability he does have, if any? And can he become a player like Jackson Haas from the Buffalo Bills, who's like a true legitimate blocking tight end, but also can flash some receiving ability at times? Is that a player that you kind of have your eyes on in terms of like transformation, like transformative properties in his receiving ability? Or is he just literally a Darnell Washington where you line him up as an extra tight end or an extra offensive lineman and go block at the point of attack?
Well, Darnell Washington this last season actually really came on as a pass catcher. And yeah, I mean, you have so many receiving drills. The combine is built for passing. You don't get a lot of the blocking aspect of it outside of offensive line. So you don't get a lot to test there, but you get plenty to test the receiving abilities if he can show up there, and athletic testing as well. Those explosive drills, the three cone is prop for tight ends, especially receiving tight ends, is the biggest indicator of NFL success. I can't remember the number off the top of my head that you're looking for. But there is guys in the NFL over the last like 10 years, every tight end who's had more than like 650 receiving yards had under this number, and no tight end who had over that took longer than that. So I can't remember what the mark is for it. But that's one thing looking for it. And, I'm glad you brought up Jackson Haas, because Jackson Haas was just that pure blocker. But what he did at the combine was he showed that potential as a receiver, not necessarily being, an explosive playmaker capable tight end, but he can be that safety net outlet for the quarterback. And that's what his role was with her. He would start in as blocking and then slip out, make himself a target, and was able to do a little bit of work that way.
Well, and he was also fairly decent after the catch, if I remember correctly. Like there was some movement ability with Jackson Haas over the course of the season. I think he got 3 or 4 different touchdown catches as well. So it's not impossible to improve that kind of a stock. Like when it comes to the combine, guys, everyone's like, well, this guy's blowing the doors out and he's going to make so much money. That's not necessarily the case. Like the drills will do more for you than the athletic testing numbers will, unless you either blow everything away or you bomb it so badly that like now we have to really reevaluate it. The movement drills and the drills like the gauntlet, which is another question I had for you just quickly here. the gauntlet where you line up on one side of the field, you turn around, you catch the ball, turn around, catch the ball, then you run in a straight line and be as straight in line as possible. Turn your head one way, catch the ball, turn your head the other way, catch the ball, turn your head. So when you're running the gauntlet drill here, Eric, and especially in terms of a guy like Jackson Haas or like a Nate Borkirker or some of these stiffer wide receivers, what's like more important for you in terms of how you operate in that drill as a player? Is it the body control and being able to run in a straight line, or is it the ability to catch off target balls and utilize your hands and your catch radius while operating in that drill?
So for the tight ends and those bigger receivers that, those big slot receivers that you use kind of like a slot tight end kind of role, the little Jordan Humphrey molds of that, it's the catching. That's what you're looking for, especially if you have a lot of questions with them as a receiver. You want to see if them plucking the ball out of the air, natural hands, not fighting themselves with the catch. So when you're fighting yourself, that's where you tend to see drops. That's where you see the double catches that lead the door for drops or opening the door for broken up passes. You want to see that consistency of we're snatching the ball, we're guiding it in, and they don't have to tuck it during the gauntlet, but you want to see that motion of it as they toss it to the side and then quickly get ready for the next one. It's that process there that they really need to stand out. It's something that Jackson Haas did last year. It's something that Darnell Washington did a couple years ago. And that's what gives you an idea if these blocking tight ends can really develop to be at least some sort of weapon in the passing game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I agree with you 100%. And like the body control thing, especially with smaller receivers, like where they can kind of get knocked off of their route, where they can kind of get knocked off of off their course of direction, especially if they have like a lack of arm length with an off target throw. How do they control themselves running in a straight line and just continuing on with the ability to be outside of their catch radius and how they focus on the ball and getting their head back around. Like there's the gauntlet is one of my most favorite drills to watch, especially when they use the tracker after the fact, and they'll track what like guys running in a zigzag line rather than running. You want to be as straight as you possibly can, running directly down that yard mark. So to prove that you have the consistency in your body control to be able to get your head back right. It's so much fun. We're running short on time here, so I'm trying to find
the good news is next week we can really dive into the defensive side of it because that will be, I think, defensive line and linebackers are on Thursday, and I think defensive backs are Friday.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, yes, you're absolutely correct on that. So this we can do a couple more here. Staying on the offensive side of the ball. For offensive linemen, and dude, you're like the offensive line guru here, especially at Mile High Huddle. You offensive and defensive line, like you do the best work of anybody that I've seen. I mean, it's a lot of fun here. So going to the drill specifically, then I have one quick player question, and we'll wrap it up and get out of here. For the drill specifically, what drill is the most important for you in terms of offensive line, like movement skills? Is it obviously like bench press is going to be something everyone's going to want to talk about, but is it the forward backward movement skills? Is it side to side agility? Is it their ability to get up off the ground and follow directions? Like what is the specific drill and offensive line play that you really like to watch the most? And what does it mean to you to be able to do that?
As it is with everything, it really depends on the archetype of the player.
Well, obviously, come on, man.
And it depends on what scheme they're going to as well. If you're running more of a West Coast scheme, you're looking for the pull drills in particular of how smooth you are, how tight you are with the pull, being able to get out. Are you controlled with that? And one of the more underrated things with offensive linemen in general, the explosive testing. How fast can you fire off that line? That 10-yard split, that's a really good one for offensive line as well. You don't care about the final 30. You care about that 10-yard split. Because even when you're pulling, how quickly are they? 3-cone. That's a pulling drill. Like it's an athletic test for pulling ability. But my favorite drill for it is I can't remember what it's called. It's basically the one you're just going back and forth. You can't anticipate what they're going. You got to wait and react.
Yeah, that shuffle drill. I know what you're talking about.
It's a shuffle drill. It's so good with the footwork. Are they clicking their heels together or are they stepping? Are they being heavy-footed on their outside foot when they're moving one way? Are they being heavy-footed on their inside foot if they're moving that way? How are they and again, biggest thing, you're not supposed to anticipate, you're supposed to react. So when they make that call for you to change, how smooth can you change? When you make that change, are your heels clicking, or are you just planting and coming out of that? And how are you coming out of that? And the reason why you don't want to anticipate is because if you anticipate in the NFL against what an edge rusher is going to do, they're going to learn to use that against you. This is a DeMarcus very special with what he was able to do, particularly with that spin. Offensive tackle started anticipating it, and then he would throw something else at them and catch them anticipating it.
Yep.
Or use it, you do that to set it up. So you don't want to anticipate, you want to be able to react. It's that reactionary speed, that mental process of these offensive linemen of being able to stay in phase with their assignment and how will they move. This is my favorite drill, regardless of position, because you can tell so much about an offensive lineman with how they do with this drill.
Well, and another aspect of this, like you said, are they clicking their heels together? Are they pointing a toe in a certain direction? Are they staying square to the line of scrimmage? Are they staying in a relatively straight line? Are they drifting backwards? Are they drifting forwards? Like body control. It's legitimately a body control drill, and that's a big thing that you want to take away from the combine in a controlled environment. Everyone's doing the exact same drill. It may not be the exact same way, but you're doing the exact same drill as everybody else in your position group, and you're doing it in a side-by-side manner, and it shows that body control. Are your arms flopping back and forth, or as you're moving back sideways? Are you pointing a toe? Are you shuffle stepping as you get into or out of your break? Like, there's a lot of that body control is really fun.
Oh,
specific. Go ahead.
Something you brought reminded me of it. I can't remember the guard. This was a couple years ago. There was a guard that was absolutely, and by say a couple years ago, I mean this was like 6-7 years ago. There's a guard that was absolutely beloved by during the draft process by a lot of Broncos fans. Man, I want to say this was like, man, it was even more. It was more than that. It was like 2016, 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. And during this drill, he's no longer in the NFL. He's out of the NFL. He only lasted in the NFL, not even through the rookie contract. He was cut in year 3, I think it was. Might have spent bouncing around on a practice squad for a couple years after that, and then was done. And in this drill, you mentioned the arm movement. So what you want to see is those arms in, staying tight and cocked and ready. And when he was going through this drill, you were seeing them bounce with his movements. And one of the big issues that he had was keeping his hands inside the frame. He got called for quite a few penalties, and he was giving up his chest consistently because when he was having to slide, he wasn't keeping his hands inside and ready to fight back or ready to compete, ready to block. And this led to defensive linemen being able to take advantage of it, led to a lot of struggles, led to him getting benched, I believe, early in year 2, rode the pine for the rest of the season, got cut during his third season or right before his third season, and bounced around. So that's just another element that you're looking for with this. And so I'm glad you mentioned the arm wave.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's always fun. And that's why I watch a lot of these drills. It's the body control thing. Like the subtleties of watching it, like understanding what you're watching and what these teams are trying to get out of these drills will also help you refine a little bit of your scouting techniques and like just paying the attention to the minute little details here. So quickly before we get out of here, Eric, and I know we are running very short on time. We got about 2 minutes before we hit the top of the hour here. I wanted to ask you specifically because the Broncos right now, obviously Mike McGlinchey is a restructure candidate, could be a potential cut candidate. I don't think they're going to cut him, but restructure, then move on from him here in a couple of years. Looking for a potential developmental tackle here. Caleb Tiernan is a guy that kind of caught my eye as a player that's got good athleticism. He's 6'7", 325 pounds, moves really well. Play strength is kind of a concern, at least from what I was able to see in just a little bit of scouting that I got on him. Is that a potential player for the Broncos here as let's call it a round 2, round 3 developmental tackle, or is he a little bit lower on your board than that?
He will probably go top 75.
Okay.
Right now, obviously, athletic testing and all that. He is, oh man, I can't remember much of my notes or my little write-up that I did on him because he's in my top 10 tackles right now. I think he's like right at like 9 or 10, maybe 8.
I liked him. I thought he's pretty good.
I know when I had to go back and retype it because when I double checked my notes, I was getting him mixed up with the Clemson tackle. So the
Blake
Clemson
Miller, yeah.
tackle, Blake Miller, dude just plays standing straight up. Like there's no bend to him whatsoever. And Tiernan, I think that there are issues with his leverage, but it's caused naturally. It's not that he pops up um, necessarily. It's that he just is naturally high that he doesn't make up for it with a little bit extra bend in the waist and the knees where you want to see it. And it leads to some issues there. He has a bad habit of lunging into contact. He doesn't have the longest arm, so I'm really curious to see about that arm length because I don't think with the natural height that he has, and just not making up for it with the bend, I really question moving him inside to guard where that becomes an even bigger issue. He does have a lot of issues. Not the quickest kick slide to get out in front of the arch. So I'm not. So that's another thing that I kind of got to see, and that's something that they will test for. And I'm glad that they at the combine. I'm glad they started test timing some of the kick slides in the drills. That's great to see. Explosive guys definitely took advantage of that issue throughout the season with him. Um, for Denver in particular, he is not the guy I would go with for it. I think there
Okay.
are a few other tackles probably that we'll talk about in that same range that I think make a little bit more sense for them, basically because of what they have to offer and what Denver in particular is looking for from their tackles.
Yeah. Gotcha. Like I said, a baseline little bit of what I got to see. He is a definitely a waist bender. Like he does lean forward, leans into contact. I didn't notice necessarily a length issue, so I'm glad that you brought that up. But no, thanks for the quick scouting report on Caleb Tiernan here. Want to run through. I think I've got everybody in terms of the comment. Whoa! All of a sudden, my comment section just blew up, and I got like 30 messages.
Yeah,
That's
there's
fun.
been issues with StreamYard with not
Okay.
putting in YouTube comments as
Okay.
we go.
Well, let's wrap it up here, guys. I don't see anything as I'm scrolling through this that is super pressing to get in here, other than just a couple of shout outs from our guy Peter saying thanks for the info, Eric. Todd Ostendorf saying hit bend flexibility. Yep. Talking about Quinn Miners, how Miners is a stud, Miners is elite. So we got Michael Ronquillo jumping in here at the tail end of the show saying, great show tonight, Eric and Lance on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos. Go Mike. And again, one of our wonderful members over on the YouTube page. So make sure you guys check that out here in a second. I do believe that kind of wraps it up for the offensive side of the football for the combine. Well, as Eric said, that's a really good idea. We'll break down the defensive side of this here. I have nothing else, Eric. So
And we'll have actual data to go off of too.
Yeah, absolutely. But
right.
yeah, I'm all done, bud.
Real quick, Mblex coming in saying, I'm here to party. Glad you can join us. Glad we're finally getting around to seeing it. Again, we were just too busy in the conversation, and we're having issues on our end with chats popping up. Michael Ronquillo saying, this is why I trust Eric and Lance doing the work for us about these prospects and the info. I appreciate that. I still advise people to do their own work and all that as well. Todd Onsdorf, I can't do what Eric doesn't say married. Got to give a shout out to my wife here and how supportive she's been over the years. Couldn't do this without her. Absolutely love her. And being able to deal with my quirky ass through this time of year and through life in general. Really appreciative of her.
On my end, I have to agree with that just quickly because my wife and the work that I'm able to do and the work that I do in my actual day job would love to be more around, and she puts up with a lot of my nonsense. So shout out to the wives there for a minute.
Yeah. Definitely shout out to the wives. Valentine's Day was 6 days ago. Shout out to the wives.
Yep.
But thank you guys for tuning in. I'm glad that we were all able to have a lot of you have come in and said that you're able to learn a lot or appreciate what we kind of get into in the deep dive analysis and what we're looking for. We appreciate that. I absolutely love doing this. I love trying to make other people better with their ability to scout and come up with their own analysis, because in terms of scouting, I don't think there's really much of a case of too many voices and too many chefs in the kitchen, I think is what the actual saying is. Being able to bounce ideas off and thoughts off of other people, like I'm able to do with some of the people here in the chat, with you, Lance, with Nick, with Carl, and a couple other people. It helps push me and strive me to be better, especially better than Nick. Um, but no, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. But before we get at it, we do have some last words to get into. And of course, as you can see, scrolling across the bottom of here, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share. It's something that only takes a matter of time and helps us with the algorithms, especially on YouTube and Facebook, that are ever changing and ever being frustrating on our end. Also, if you haven't done so yet, go over to youtube.com/milehighhuddle and become a member. We have a lot of exclusive content that is coming out right now, and there's a lot of stuff that's in the work. I still got to get around to talking to Chad. It's just been so busy. But I have a few thoughts on a couple things here that I want to get into and start doing, especially after the combine happens. Super chats and stars, if you're able to financially do so, make sure you guys, if you want, you guys can do that and help us support us, help us keep the lights on. We get all of that pretty much. You guys can also go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I hate saying swag every single month. Speaking of being able to get some stuff, you can guys go to mhhmerch.com and get your gear on, not swag. Again, I hate saying swag. You guys can get hats like the ones that I have on, shirts. I got to get around to getting me a Broncos for breakfast hat, because I got to tell you, it's been a year since I started doing Broncos for breakfast, basically, and I haven't gotten around to getting a Broncos for breakfast hat, and I still feel a little weird wearing Dove LED divers for it. You guys can also join the MHH Discord server. The link is in the description down below. You guys can join the community that has already made their move over there and be part of some conversations. You guys can follow us on Instagram at MileHighHuddle. You guys can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/MileHighHuddlePod, facebook.com/MileHighHuddle, where you guys can be part of the wonderful Facebook community that we built up over the last 13, going on 14 years. You guys make sure you follow us on Twitter at MileHighHuddle, at DVDD_pod, at DMHHpod, at Lance S_MHH, and myself at Erick Trickel. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys had a wonderful night. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. But before we get out of here, Lance, any last words?
No, just one quick thing. As Erick said, just blessed to be able to do this and have conversations with everybody. And I've maintained this in terms of what I enjoy with NFL draft media is the more voices you listen to, the more that you can get these collaborative efforts, whether it's me and Erick or me and Nick or Erick and Nick or whoever that may be. I mean, me jumping on another show. It's always great to have that discourse, to get different opinions and just broaden and expand your horizon. So I'm glad that we get to do this show and it just offer up a little bit of what it is like to be in the scouting community. So thank you guys for joining us. We definitely appreciate you all. You stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Broncos.
Yeah, stay safe. And as Todd and Michael say, don't drink and drive. Stay safe. Choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos. I'll be back Monday morning. We'll be back next Friday. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Reach out to anybody if you're struggling. Reach out to me. Reach out to Lance. Reach out to Nick. Especially, and just make sure you guys go and send Nick a bunch of anti-Iowa memes. He absolutely loves them, finds them hilarious. So make sure you tweet them and tag them in all those. But again, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Again, don't drink and drive. I cannot emphasize that enough. I could fill a whole show just saying don't drink and drive. Go Broncos. And good night.